So a common question that you find in GCSE PE papers is something to do with the benefits of exercise. Now with exercise we've got three different categories really. We've got the immediate effects such as the responses of the body, such as the rising heart rate, the rising breathing rate. We then have the sort of short-term effects which happen the day or two after, such as delayed onset of muscle soreness. There might be an element of sickness or fatigue. There might be a little bit of foggy thinking or slower decision making because we're still actually recovering from the exercise that we just completed in the previous 24 or 48 hours. And then the third category are the longer term effects, or the adaptations that our body goes through after sustained and persistent, perhaps progressively, overloading our body in exercise. So this question here is asking us about the long-term benefits of exercise, but this could be short-term, this could be medium-term, but this one is long-term. So what we're looking for is the actual benefit. So they're going to put in, one or two or three red herrings, I should say, and then there's going to be one answer. And a good way to approach this is by just thinking about what the answer that they give you, what would that mean for the body? Does it help it? Does it hinder it? If it helps the body, chances are it's probably a benefit which might have been brought out by exercise. So if we look at A here, a higher resting heart rate. Well, is that a good thing? Would we want a higher resting heart rate? No, because it means that our heart is constantly under more strain. It's having to beat more times every single minute than it would if we were in better condition or of better cardiovascular health. So a heart that has to beat more often, that's not in a good state. It's got less capabilities of rising to the challenge when put into cardiovascularly demanding situations. So let's say we're resting at 90 beats per minute and our maximum is 200, we've only got a threshold or window of 110 beats increase. Whereas if our resting heart rate is 50 beats per minute and our maximum is still that 200, we've now got 150 beats to increase into to satisfy energy demands around our body with. So we know it's not going to be that one. Reduced blood pressure. Well, what would this mean for our body? Well, first of all, what is blood pressure? It's the outward pressure that blood exerts on the surrounding tissue as it flows through it. And what that can cause is arteriosclerosis. It can cause ruptures in blood vessels, particularly the coronary blood vessels, which supply our cardiac muscle with oxygenated blood and nutrients. So if we had too high a blood pressure or hypertension, there's lots of associated risks with that. Increased risk of stroke, increased risk of heart attack, increased risk of blockages in different vessels around our body or especially in our heart. So if we were to reduce that blood pressure, not so as to go as low as hypotension where it's too low, but reducing this blood pressure is good for the body. It doesn't put as much strain on the vascular system that's carrying the blood around. So if we could achieve that, that's a good thing. So if we exercise frequently and we are getting better, it makes sense that our blood pressure would reduce. We know that capillarization can occur through persistent exercise, and if we've got a bigger vascular network for the same volume of blood, well, there's more space for the blood to flow into. Therefore, more space, lower fluid, we get a reduction in the pressure. C, reduced stroke volume. So this is the amount of blood that we eject per contraction of the heart, mainly from the left ventricle. But what would a lower stroke volume mean for our body? Well, it means less blood is leaving the heart per beat. If we do that, then we're going to have to beat more times per minute in order to satisfy the cardiac output demands. And we've already spoken about having a higher resting heart rate and how that's not a good thing. So if we were to reduce our stroke volume as well, that's not going to be good for performance. It's going to put, again, an additional strain on the heart because it's going to have to maintain a higher heart rate if it's going to maintain a high enough cardiac output with stroke volume going lower. So we know that that's not going to be a benefit, therefore it's probably not going to be something that the body adapts over time with training. And lastly, reduced tidal volume. Similarly with stroke volume. This is the equivalent, you could say, in the respiratory system. So how much we breathe in or out per breath during rest, during exercise, whatever it might be. If we were to reduce that tidal volume, what that actually means is that we're taking less air in. Now this one's a little bit of a tricky one because if our body is improving over time, then our body might not actually need to breathe in as much air per minute because it's able to extract more oxygen from the air that it does breathe in. So it's able to actually become a little bit more efficient. It doesn't require as much air per breath because it can still extract the same amount of oxygen that it can do, but now with less air. So there's going to be less demands placed onto the respiratory muscles. But tidal volume, we don't see this change too often or to too big a deal in a performer. When we are exercising, what we actually want is to have a bigger tidal volume, because if we can get more air in than we could previously, then that means even if we have improved our ability to extract oxygen, we've now got more air to extract even more oxygen out of, which are going to satisfy energy demands way better than if we didn't get better at extracting oxygen and we didn't have a higher tidal volume during exercise. So what's the answer, A, B, C or D? It would be B, a reduced blood pressure, because we've got that expanding capillarization, expanding vascular network, and our body gets better at moving that blood around the body. Hope that helped, and I'll see you again in the next one.